dusk. As sunlight departs and the cold of night falls upon the grey graveyard stones, who knows what lingers in the shadows? Is it here that departed souls gather? And is it from a place like this that one or two wander abroad, coming amongst us, seen only by a very few? From time immemorial, people in all four corners of the world have told of ghosts or phantasms, spirits of the departed who most of the time trouble us hardly at all. Where would you go to look for a ghost? An overgrown Victorian cemetery? A fortress like that of the man in the Iron Mask? Among the ruined stones of a medieval castle? But the real thing does not always appear where you might expect. Behind these ordinary curtains dwelt the Enfield poltergeist. These figures appeared in a Spanish bedroom. Who were they? This woman smiles for the camera in Austria, but she wasn't there at the time. Are there ghosts in the gatehouse? And what do they want? And what did this man see in the honeymoon suite? Most people's views on ghosts are based on stories and legends, and Pevensey Castle in Sussex is a fitting place to find a ghost. Lady Joan Pelham, wife of one of the castle's constables, was in command whilst Pevensey withstood a siege at the end of the 14th century. Her anxious ghost still paces the battlements, awaiting her husband's return. The picture book Red Brick Castle at Hurstmonceux has several ghosts. One is of a giant drummer who paces the battlements. Another is of a young girl who appears in the courtyard. The third is of a cloaked horseman who rides into the moat and disappears. Mickleham Priory, parts of which date back to 1229, is just the kind of place you would expect to be haunted.
Well, here at Mickleham, we've got several ghosts, but one that I think is 100% genuine. And that is of a lady wearing a grey or greyish blue gown. She was seen to approach the gatehouse here behind me with a dog. And there were two people waiting to pay. The custodian in the kiosk stopped the couple saying, "Excuse me a moment," and turned to the lady with the dog and said, "Sorry, no dogs allowed." She turned round, came back to where we're standing at the moment, and vanished. At that point, one of the potential visitors collapsed in a fit of hysteria and fainted, and first aid had to be applied, and she was sent home.
Naturally, an old building like Mickleham Priory, once a monastery of Augustinian monks, has many tales attached to it.
I just walked in by the door, and this same feeling came over me again. This arm came round my waist, and I thought actually it was my husband. I thought he was behind me, and I turned round quickly to call him a few silly words, you know, messing about, but there was no Donald.
It was November, some years ago. I found myself entirely alone on the site. Before I left, I went down to the Great Barn to make sure that the doors were secure. On my way past the front of the house, that top right-hand window suddenly opened. I heard a thud, which made me look up, and there was the window opening with no hand in sight, opening it from the inside. The problem was that it was behind 3 locked doors. The room hadn't been used for some 3 months at least, and it really made my hair stand on end. Fortunately, as I was getting the keys, the chairman came back from his trip into town and accompanied me upstairs. We opened the doors and finally got to that window, which was wide open, and there was no visible means of it having been opened by human touch.
Evidently, many people have experienced ghosts at the old priory at Mickleham. But what exactly is a ghost?
A ghost, I suppose, is an apparition which defies explanation, so that it's not something which is material, but a ghost may be male, female, animal, human, big, small, opaque or transparent. A ghost can be many things, but it's basically something that defies some sort of scientific explanation.
In my opinion, a ghost is a form of electromagnetic energy, according to the experts, between 380 and 440 millimicrons of the infrared portion of the light spectrum. In other words, it is a form of energy that cannot normally be seen by a human eye, can perhaps be seen by clairvoyance, that we don't know, but it is merely a form of electromagnetic energy. You can't do anything, you can't talk to it, and it doesn't come back. Either it is there or it isn't.
And it seems to me that, you know, there are a number of different types of ghosts. You have the sort of a ghost of somebody who that you know and you see, and it comes back perhaps bringing you a message of some sort. Then you have a ghost, which sometimes in parapsychology we refer to as a place image. It's like a photograph that is there, but it doesn't seem to do anything apart from appear to certain people and they can see it. And that's interesting in itself. That's the place image ghost. And then possibly we have a ghost which we could refer to as a crisis apparition. That is, it is only seen, this sort of ghost, when something dramatic or traumatic has occurred. I think one could say that possibly these are the 3 most frequently experienced types of ghosts.
I was once celebrating a Requiem Mass in a house where the family had seen a ghost. Different members of the family, without telling each other, had the same experience. And then they discovered that the people who'd lived in the house before had moved because they had seen the same ghost. And then when they described the ghost, it was fairly plainly someone who'd lived in the house before and had committed suicide there. And so we had a Requiem Mass. We started praying for the soul of the person who died, and with that they appeared. And in fact, we simply carried on with the service, and halfway through, when the point at which we believe the bread and wine become the body and blood of Christ, the person smiled and disappeared, and hasn't been seen since.
Deep in the heart of the New Forest is Bignell Wood. Now lived in by psychiatrist Dr. Kenneth MacCall, the house was formerly owned by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and an enthusiastic spiritualist.
There are some things left in this house of his, like his bookcase, the stag that he shot in Scotland. There's a garden table. There are some broken up pottery gnomes that he had in the garden. And the previous inhabitants said, oh, well, that wing of the house is haunted, don't sleep there. I thought this was rubbish. I thought rats or owls, probably on the flat roof. So on purpose, I put my children to sleep in this end of the house. And they are 5 children they were 6 to 18 at that time. And they started complaining that this man came and trod on their toys, and he got in the way, big sloppy bedroom slippers, but he didn't hurt anything or knock them over. And he would walk in through a closed door, and he went round the corner and must have gone out the window, but the window wasn't even open. And they chatted this as being quite a frequent and ordinary occurrence, but felt that he was a nuisance. The postman, milkman, these people would never come down the drive because they said it was like a cold chill and they're going to be interfered with in some way. So they always left things at the front gate. The crux came when my eldest daughter, who was now secretary, came down for Christmas from London, and at breakfast time she suddenly said, "I had a most interesting night. I've been talking to Conan Doyle." Then she put her hand over her mouth and said, "Good gracious, yesterday I told you that you were all talking absolute rubbish. But I've seen him and I've heard him, and I woke up and I sat up, and he was in the attic up above me, walking around, and he said, 'I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I woke you up. I must find my diary. It's black leather with an elastic band round it, and I cannot find it, and it's got to be found so that I can write my memoirs. I'm so glad that you children have come to enjoy this house, because this is where I had all my children, and I want you to lie down and go to sleep again, and I won't disturb you again.' At this point I thought, now that's had it. I'm going to the local vicar, and you jolly well come and do something." So he came into this room, and he sat here, and he did a service of some kind. I don't even recall what he said or did. But the next day, Conan Doyle's eldest daughter phoned us from London to say, "He's going to tell us what's going on. We've all gone peaceful." And he's never appeared or interfered anywhere that we know of again.
Well, one cause of a haunting that we've come across seems to be related to unfinished business. Sometimes they seem to be coming back with some kind of message or some kind of need to complete some sort of action. For example, in the movie Ghost, the entity was coming back because he was concerned that his girlfriend was in danger. So he had to complete the action of resolving that issue before he could move on. We've had cases involving people hiding things. A mother hid her jewelry in one case in the wall in the house, and she kept coming back trying to get her family members to go find the jewelry, but most of them just kept getting frightened when she would appear, and so she couldn't really complete the action. But eventually one of them realized what she was trying to do, and she literally led that person to a place in the wall and told him to start digging through there, and he did, and he found the jewels. And once the jewelry was discovered, the haunting ended immediately. So we think that this is a basic category of the kinds of experiences we come across, where some unfinished business needs to be completed.
Yes, I was once called to a house where the night before the family had woken up thinking they were being burgled. And when the father opened the bedroom door, he found a group of people coming out of a wall, walking along the landing and disappearing out of another wall. And he said they were in old-fashioned dress and were carrying what looked like brown paper parcels. And he got the family out into the street and called the police. The police sent a van with a sergeant, a cadet, and a dog. And the dog refused to go into the house. So the sergeant turned to the cadet and said, "Right, lad, in you go, see what's happening." And he went up the stairs, not knowing what to expect, and saw exactly what the family had described, a group of people in groups of twos or threes, carrying what looked like these brown paper parcels and walking along the landing. When I got talking to the local priest, he said that they had a lot of problems with those houses in that particular area of the parish, and then he told me it was all built over a plague pit. And when I got talking to the family, I discovered that 3